John Cassis, the former chaplain of the Chicago Bears football team, shared a story many years ago that I find interesting. Some of you will relate to this as I look across the room. We have varying ages in the room, so this may not be relative to everyone, but to some of you it will be. John Cassis was chaplain of the Chicago Bears team during their era as that national championship Chicago Bears team. You'll remember those years back in the 80s. They had a coach by the name of Mike Ditka and a quarterback by the name of Jim McMahon, and had this little old fellow that played tackle for a brief period from across the border down south. Anybody have any idea what his name was? Well, he had a real name, but we knew him as a refrigerator. William Refrigerator Perry, a little old fellow from over on the south side of the Carolinas. Cassis tells the story that Coach Ditka, regardless of what you might know about him, had a practice back then of a very regimented way of getting this team prepared to meet their opponent on a given Sunday or Monday night or whatever particular day they met their opponent. I don't recall seeing Cassis in this light as a then teenager watching the Chicago Bears play. Looking back on that, I still find it a bit difficult to see this person the way the chaplain described it. But after all, Ditka did have a chaplain on his squad, which at that point was still a very rare thing among the NFL teams. Cassis said that Ditka each week would get his team ready by taking them through a very rigorous week of practice. On game day, he'd get them there early. They'd go through the playbook for that particular play scheme for that particular game. He'd bring them off the field, take them inside the locker room, give them that go-get-one for the Gipper kind of speech, send them back out to the playing field. On a particular Sunday, Cassis said that Ditka had done all those same things he did every week getting the team ready. They went out early that morning, they went out and did their practice and got ready, brought them back into the locker room. He gave them that go-get-one for the Gipper kind of speech, and then he did what he did apparently every week. He huddled that team in the locker room so that they could pray together as a team. Now, many years ago, some of us played athletics in high school and college, and we remember doing similarly on the athletic field, but not as often today. But there he was, Cassis, a chaplain, in the locker room now with these huge specimen of men that play that game of professional football. Coach Ditka has got them all charged up. He huddles them up in the locker room, and he did that week what he did every week. He would look across that mass of men ready to play the game and would choose from that group one person each week to lead the team in prayer. Now that was a position of honor because not everybody got to do it. Back then they only played 11 games, maybe 12 maximum in a season. So, you know, with 100 players on the squad, you know, that's a very select position to be chosen to provide the prayer. He would make his decision based on how well they practiced that week, maybe how they performed in the previous week's game, and it was some way of saying, hey, you know, this guy's doing something good. We want him to step out of the circle and lead. On that particular Sunday, Cassis said he did as he did every week. He got to the back of the circle, not to get in the middle of it. He was the chaplain, but he sort of got to the back of the huddle. He bowed his head and closed his eyes and laid his hands on the shoulder pads of whomever was in front of him, as he did every week, preparing to find himself in a spirit of reverence, getting ready for what was about to happen. He bowed his head and he closed his eyes, and Ditka's ready now to call the name of the player. And he did that Sunday by calling the name of Fridge. It's your day, son. Step to the center of the circle and lead this team in the Lord's Prayer. Okay? Ditka called him. Cassis has got his head bowed and his eyes closed. He said no sooner had he done that did he feel a nudge in his left side. Trying not to break the spirit of reverence he found himself in, he only opened his left eye to catch a glimpse of who it was nudging him. And it was none other than Jim McMahon, that brassy quarterback of that same Chicago Bears team. Very quickly, McMahon whispered over to the chaplain, hey, preacher, bet you $20 Perry doesn't know the Lord's Prayer. Now think about that a second. Regardless of your religious affiliation, we could probably try our best at it, and we get most of it right. We're from the South, and we've heard it all our lives in some form or fashion. We could mutter our way through it. The preacher's there in the back of the huddle. He'd been offered a wager to begin with. He said he was caught in a bit of a quandary. What do I do? in the milliseconds that he had to make his mind up, he said he considered, well, you know, it's gambling. I shouldn't do that. But $20 is $20, especially to a preacher. After all, who will know but me and him? So quickly he responded and said, you're on. Bowed his head and closed his eyes. Perry's now at the center of the circle. He's proud to have been chosen by his coach for this honor. His chest is bowed out, his head is arched back, and with great enthusiasm he offers this prayer when he says, now I lay me down to sleep. Pray the Lord my soul to keep. And you know the rest of that bedtime prayer. Cassie said, no sooner had Perry begun that prayer did he feel yet another nudge in his left side. Suspicious it was the same guy as before, he opened the same left eye to catch a brief glimpse of who it was. Sure enough, it was McMahon, who in his frustration confessed his sin and said to the preacher, I'll catch you after the game. I had no way of knowing he knew the Lord's Prayer.